Hello and welcome. Author Tony McGrath has written a definitive reference on aviation in Western Australia. It is called In Western Skies. He acknowledges that it was in Western Australia that Australia's first airline commenced operations, and that was in 1921. Conquering the vast distances between towns in our state was imperative for delivery of mail and people, as well as for medical retrieval. I want to take you further back than 1921 to 1909, which is just 6 years after the Wright brothers first controlled powered flights. In 1909, foreseeing future strategic benefits, the Australian Commonwealth Government offered a competition prize of £5,000 for the design and construction of a military aircraft. The competition was open to machines built in Australia, and the specifications required that aircraft be able to A. rise under its own power without the aid of a launching apparatus, B. land safely again.
Wow.
C. travel at least 20 miles per hour. D. remain aloft for at least 5 hours. E. hover. And F. carry 2 people, one to fly and the other to act as an observer. These were ambitious targets for that time. There were 2 entries from Western Australia. Firstly, Mr. Robert McMullen of Fremantle proposed an aircraft called the Boomerang. Well, it was in Australia, wasn't it? Which would have automatic in-flight stability by movable wing tips operated by piano wire and a lever. Newspaper reports indicated McMullen built a model of the proposed aircraft, which was inspected by the Minister for Defence, who commented favourably upon it. McMullen also showed the model to J.J. Hammond during his visit to WA in 1911, and Hammond opined that the principles of McMullen's design could revolutionise aviation. Young New Zealand pilot J.J. Hammond had arrived in Fremantle in 1910 with 2 box kite aircraft as part of an ambitious sales tour of the British Empire by the British and Colonial Airplane Company. His flights were spectacular, particularly as no one had seen an aircraft fly before. Secondly, Mr. Edgar Le Blond Le Henderson of Perth, a skillful young inventor and designer, proposed an aircraft driven by 2 fans at the rear and lifting fans above, thus addressing the hover requirement, a concept much before its time, with the helicopter being developed by Igor Sikorsky in 1942. For safety reasons, in the event of an engine failure, the aircraft would have several inbuilt parachutes with the object of steadying any untoward descent that might be made, and in case of falling into water, the aircraft would float. Le Henderson also proposed air brakes to slow an aircraft prior to landing, again a concept before its time and later used in modern aircraft. A model of the proposed aeroplane was on display in Leederville in September 1910, where Le Henderson gave a talk to an interested audience, including the Premier, Sir Newton Moore, and the Minister for Works, Mr. Frank Wilson. Le Henderson advised that his plans had already been accepted by the Military Inventions Board. Neither aircraft appears to have progressed beyond the design phase, and in the end the government competition came to nothing as the specifications were well beyond the limits of technical knowledge of the day, and nationwide no working machines were ever submitted. Dr. John Taylor writes that Edgar was co-winner in a Commonwealth Department of Defence competition for the design of an airplane, and in subsequent years delivered illustrated lectures in aerodynamics and on the theory of flight. It appears that he tried to join the Australian Army in 1916 but was rejected, possibly for medical reasons. End of quote. Remember that in 1916 the Australian Flying Corps was a branch of the Australian Army, the Royal Australian Air Force, not formed as an independent force until 1921. He had better luck in the next war, enlisting in 1942, serving as a captain in the Royal Australian Engineers, aged 52 years. Curious for not choosing to enter the RAAF though. Le Henderson's career as an architect is manifested in the design of many churches and public buildings that grace Perth today. Here are a few of those. Le Henderson passed away in 1971, aged 81 years. Fortunately, Edgar Le Henderson's plans survived and were curated at the Aviation Heritage Museum in Bullcreek. Thank you for watching.